So let's see if I can do this without having my wizard with me. This is the first time that I've tried live streaming without Myrna to let me know if I'm doing it right or not. So please bear with me while I figure it out. Apparently that light is looking really yellow, so let's just cycle that through. Hey, that's better. Winning. Alright, so I know this isn't my usual time, but I figured I would give it a shot. I'm just working on some painting tonight for Dexter's map, and I know a lot of people have been asking me lately about my watercolor work, so I thought, well, why not stream part of this process so people can kind of have a look at what I'm doing and critique and feed away. Oh look, my goddess is online. I didn't even ask her. I was trying to be a big kid. Hi Myrna. Thank you. I've also figured out a way that I can see the chat. So I'm really excited because I can actually see what people are saying as they're saying things. So this could be a lot of fun, you guys. I am going to turn off this overhead light that's behind me so that I don't have this second shadow going on. Doesn't make a difference to you guys, but it makes a difference to me, so hooray. So yeah, I am going to get started on this. This is Dexter's map. You guys have been kind of seeing me at it for the last little while. And can we focus this a little bit better? No? Guess we're going to go with it. So yeah, I still have a little bit of that cough that's been kicking around. I'm sorry. I will do my best to keep that out of your ear. If you have things to say, say them. Otherwise, I'm just going to hang out and paint for a while. I am super excited because I am working with new to me colors tonight. I made my first significant purchase with commission funds on Friday, which was amazing, and bought myself a new set of the Dr. P.H. Martin concentrated watercolors, and I'm super excited about these. The set, let me see, I've got it over here, I'll show you guys before I get started. There are, I think, 4 of these sets, come with 14 colors, I think it is. Can't count off the top of my head. And they're labeled. They work, you can use them in concentrate form or you can dilute them with water like any other standard watercolor. I wanted a few shades of green and a couple more browns when I'm doing landscapes, so I got a few more. And because it was my birthday yesterday, I also treated myself to 2 very beautiful Series 7 sable brushes. So I'm feeling a little bit spoiled right now. But look at these colors. Worth it. So yeah, I'm just gonna play around tonight and get the color underway for this map and just hanging out. So the first thing that I want to do when I'm coloring in a map is I want to start with the areas that are going to be visually the darkest on the page. And so this dense area of black forest, these forests over here, those are going to be my priority to start with. And the reason that I do this is because I want to be very careful as I'm adding color to the map to preserve the white-dark balance that's going on within the map. You want to make it so that your colors are harmoniously balanced, and by that I mean you don't want the eye to constantly being sucked back to one place over another. You want your eye to be able to move pretty freely all over the map, unless there is a specific location that you want your audience coming back to continually. And that's not the case on this map. There's no one specific geographic area over others that the author is intending for them to return to. So that gives me the responsibility of making sure that everything's kind of balanced out in the meantime. So to create a really authentic forest, I'm going to be bouncing back and forth between a couple of different greens. My darkest greens, ooh, that's really emeraldy, beautiful, are going to be right up against the base of these mountains. And then I'm going to fade them into the hills and valleys that are going on. And to do that, I'm just following the tree lines that I had already established, these darker hills. And I can play that out with the paint. I can also come back in with a brush and just kind of ease some of those transitions so that the colors melt together a little bit better. And this is the joy of watercolor for me, is that you can... Oh, that's really dark. Well, let's play that out and see where it goes. I'm going to ease a bit of that out. Hi, John. Thank you. That is Dexter's design. It's a magical symbol from his world. It just occurred to me that I spoke out of without referencing the chat. Guys, if I respond out of nowhere, it's the chat. And if I don't respond to the chat right away, it's because I'm still trying to teach myself to look up at the screen. I promise I'm not trying to ignore you. But yeah, Dexter was saying to me that this is a magical seal from within the world that he's built, and that the numbers 6 and 12 are very important to the world building. And so the compass rose reflects the number 6 with the stars that are here, which I believe has something to do with the schools of magic. I'd have to go back and check my commission brief again. But yeah, I really like it. I think it's a really bold design. There were a couple options that we tossed around, but this one was my favorite. As soon as he showed it to me, I was like, oh yes, I want to work with that. I think that that will be fantastic. I got to do a bunch of running around today that I have been looking forward to doing for a really, really long time. So I'm finally getting back to the desk, which I had intended to be at all day today. But sometimes life just takes you places and you kind of gotta roll with it. So roll with it I did. I don't have any regrets about what I got done today. It's just now I gotta get done the rest of the stuff that I was hoping to. My goal is to have Dexter's map done in like the next 2 days because poor Matthew has been so patiently waiting for me to get started. And I had intended to be off for Christmas already. My husband gets a fair amount of time off at Christmas each year because it makes up for all of the time that he's not off. And I was looking forward to being off, but we're going to do what we're going to do and make sure Matt gets his map, because that would be good. I have to say I'm really, really jamming on these brushes. Like, this is a beautiful thing to paint with. It feels quite different from the acrylic brushes, like the synthetic, I guess I should say, brushes that I normally paint with. It's got a really nice snap in the bristles. The point is gorgeous. I guess that's something I'm even more attentive to because I've spent the last 2 days painting a lot of terrain and stuff for our D&D game. That was what I decided I wanted to do for my birthday, so that's what I did. And my brushes for terrain building are in terrible shape. They are absolutely miserable. And I really noticed now that I'm playing with this beautiful one. So maybe I'll have to go to a store and grab myself some cheap little crafting brushes that just have a finer nap on them. So right now I'm just bouncing back and forth between 2 green colors. One of them is quite a bit more yellow and the other one is quite a bit more blue. And as I go back and forth, I'm just letting them blend on my brush and on the page. And that's creating a really natural range of color within the woods themselves. And this is one of the things that I love about creating color, is you have the option for creating colors that are probably never going to be seen again. Like anybody who does any kind of painting where you mix a lot of your own stuff will have had those moments where you've created a color that is absolutely perfect. And it's almost like eating a meal you know you'll never have again. Like it's beautiful and wonderful and oh, now it's over because you know you're never going to see it the same way ever again. Hi, Saxon. Nobody, you can't play ball with me right now. Can you lay down? Sorry, guys, dog just came in. Can you lay down? Oh, no, not with the squeaker. Nope. Hard pass. Out you go. There we go. Hopefully he takes that back downstairs. Or just throws it against my door for the next hour. I would rather not. That's terrible. I hope you guys can't hear that as loudly as I can. It's almost a chartreuse when that one green gets watered down out that much. That's interesting. I don't know that I really love the intensity of that. But the great thing about it is I can go back in and I can tone it down. In terms of the chroma. So we will just continue on our merry way here. I don't know if you can tell what I'm using for a palette. It's just the bottom of a candy tin. I like it because it's reflective, which lets me see through the translucency of the paint. I used to use just like a white plastic one. White is good. I like white a lot because you can see whatever is through it. There's a couple of ceramic ones that I'm really interested in. I just haven't bit the bullet to order them because I'd have to pay for shipping, and sometimes that just makes me be unhappy. That were actually kickstarted by a watercolor painter named Stephanie Poiman-Law. And if you don't know Stephanie's work, I absolutely suggest you look it up. She is one of the most gifted fantasy watercolorists I have ever seen online. She has done, I think her website is shadowscapes.com. I started following her way back when I was a teenager. She was in the process of illustrating the Shadowscapes tarot deck. I think we were on DeviantArt or Elfwood or somewhere like that. And I had the unadulterated privilege of watching her paint this deck over the course of years. Every time she'd finish a card, she would put it up and we could see it like right then. And then when the deck was finally put into production, I raced to get a copy of it because I felt so intimately connected to it, because I had watched it come into existence. Like, it was just such a powerful process for me in terms of coming to love this piece of art because I had seen it birthed. And a couple of years ago, she kickstarted a set of ceramic dishes specifically for mixing watercolor paint. And they are quite wonderful. They have lovely tons of little tiny chambers for mixing, and they're just the right size. And every time I look at them, I'm like, oh, I really want this. Like, why do I keep waiting? So maybe I will have to finally get those for myself. But ceramic is a wonderful thing, especially with watercolor, because you can reactivate watercolor for pretty much ad infinitum, depending on what kind of surface you're on. And ceramic would be a very good way to keep that. And then if you mixed a perfect color, maybe you could come back to it later and it would be less of a problem. So as I'm doing my trees, I'm kind of trying to make sure that I'm making sure I have all of the bases and just flowing the color up towards the tips. Some areas I do want just more solid mass, but in other places I'm really respecting the ink work that I've already laid down, because that's the best way to make sure that those ridge lines still have integrity and the trees look like individuals as opposed to things that suddenly are just a blob. That's one of the drawbacks of adding color to the inkwork style that I favor, is that a lot of the detail that you spend hours putting in can visually be wiped out if the color is too much or too dark. And I've had it happen where I've been like, oh, I'm really satisfied with how this is looking, and then I go back into it later and I'm like, oh, no, That is way too dark. So, kind of have to be sure that I'm balancing that out for myself so that all of the rest of this hard work isn't missed. There's about 30 hours worth of work into this map already, I think. I haven't been tracking my time as well as I could be. There's been a lot of personal stuff going on lately, so it's just kind of sit down and paint whenever you can find a minute, and I'm sure anybody who's had that creative process understands what it's like to be like, oh, I have a minute right now, let's get on this. Because that's definitely a phenomenon. Oops, super glad I had the cap on that. Come here. Shoot. It's not what I wanted. Sorry, I had a green spot over here that I'm gonna have to deal with. That's a little bit annoying. And probably the biggest side effect of dealing with the traditional media. When something goes wrong, there's fewer options for fixing it. Control Z is a super useful tool just in and of itself. So as much as I'm trying to vary the color within each forest, I'm keeping the colors of my forest very consistent. Part of the reason is that I haven't had any notes from Dexter that there are forests that should be radically different colors. Some people will spec you a map that says this forest's the trees are blue, and this is perfectly normal and perfectly relevant to the setting, and then you're like, okay, cool, your trees are blue. I will make sure that that's there. When I don't have notes like that, I don't go out of my way to improvise, especially unusual combinations like a set of blue trees, because I don't want to break the world building that the commissioner has requested. It would be hubris for me to think that I know more about their world than what they've given me notes for, and we try to avoid that whenever possible. But also that if you can keep your color palette fairly restrained and still give the effect that you're after, you're going to get a map that's visually more harmonious to look at. And that's important. You want to make sure that what you're presenting is accurate, as accurate as you can get it, and still maintain the aesthetic of what you're after, and aesthetically pleasing at the end of the day. So it's important for me to be like, okay, we're going to keep this smooth and easy and unified. And in the same way that all of the lines need to have a similar kind of aesthetic and character to them, like when I'm doing the ink work, the colors need to have that as well. Which is partly why it's a good idea for me to like paint all my forests in one go and then work on all my grasslands and stuff like that, because then I'm thinking about them at the same time. And that makes sure that I'm being consistent with how I apply my color and respect my ridge lines and all that kind of thing. Sorry about the cough, guys. It was almost gone for like 2 days and now it's back and I'm sad about it. I feel like I have not been well for a very long time now. So if I get too annoying in your ears, just let me know. We had a really great stream on Thursday this week. I typically stream on Thursday mornings because that's the time that works really well for me, and it works really well for my Myrna, who has been just the most amazing kind of midwife to this creative process that I'm on, this part of my journey. But I get a lot of people who are like, but you always stream when I'm at work. And I'm like, I hear that. Like, if I was holding out for a perfect time, it would never happen. It's kind of the nature of the beast. So I thought, well, I gotta work on a Monday night anyway. Maybe nighttime will be better for people, so we'll set up the stream. And it's nice to know that she's kind of here checking up on me anyway. It would be just cool if people wanted to come hang out. I was saying on the Thursday stream that I'm in a really small town, and it's difficult to find other artists to spend time to hang out with and creating can be a really isolating process, depending on where you are and what you do and kind of when you can do it. So the internet is really interesting in terms of being a tool that we can use to combat that isolation. So I'm trying to remind myself whenever I start to feel a little bit put upon by being in this tiny town that, you know what, you have friends and the internet can help you interact with them. So go do it. So yeah, trying to. One of the dilemmas that I'm having is that I don't normally label my maps. It's not something that I prefer to do. I am far stronger as someone who can draw and paint than I am as someone who does beautiful hand lettering. Like, I could, but it takes me forever. It's not something that I've dedicated a lot of time to. It's not something that I expressly have a ton of patience for. And so I typically don't label my maps. But I was requested to label these maps. So I was like, okay, cool. Like, I definitely will do that if that's something that you want me to do. But now I don't know if I, like, leave the areas white or if I color them. Like, I'm far more inclined to color them because then otherwise these white dots everywhere are just going to be hugely distracting. But I will have to ask Dexter what his preference is for that because, like, right now I don't know. Man, I love that green. That's just punchy, hey? That's beautiful. That one is the moss green. I love it. Yep, yep, yep. This forest that I'm painting is apparently where the raven fables live in this story. And I love the idea of a raven people. Ravens are just so incredibly smart. Like, blindingly, blindingly smart. There was a study that I was reading about, I forget where the article was from now, that they had been giving ravens puzzles to solve. And there was one raven who solved the puzzle in a way that the researchers hadn't anticipated. And they had to remove it from the study because it started teaching its solution to the other ravens, which was kind of breaking their study. And the idea of that just made me giggle. It was like, way to thwart the system, dude. Like, that is awesome. It made me laugh. Not jamming on that so much. That's better. That sound of a paintbrush swishing through water is one of those sounds that is weirdly soothing for me. Probably because I've done it for so long. Hello?
We have a free Domino's. Do you want an epic pizza?
I do.
Okay, let me know when you're ready for it.
Okay, I'm streaming right now, so give me about 45 minutes.
Okay.
Okay, cool. I love you.
Love you.
Yeah, epic pizza. That's exciting. I guess I should have warned him that I was streaming. Maybe that would have been fair. So now that I'm coming down to areas where there's just single trees and it's a thinner forest, I want to be a lot more careful about how I'm laying down my paint. I want to be very deliberate in my color choices, and I want to be very, very precise with the application of it. I'm also going to shift one more green into this rotation. This one is the Hooker's Green, which is different from the other ones because it's a synchromatic watercolor, not a radiant watercolor. I'm not completely sure what about the process of creating those paints is different. I have yet to kind of derive that from reading the catalog, but I do love the nature of the color. Like, it's just beautiful. So that will kind of help differentiate. This is a slightly different setup. I don't have a whole lot to say tonight, sorry guys. I was mostly just planning on working and thought I'd turn this on in case anybody else was interested. So this is supposed to be kind of marshy down here. So I'm going to lay down a lighter green because I know I'm going to layer a yellow ochre down into this area as well to kind of create more of an impression of kind of swamp and muskeg. So I want to be careful that I'm not using my darkest, bluest green down here because I know for a fact that I want to have that be able to transfer that other color later on. And that's just where it's really important to know what your spec notes are. Make sure you have them in mind before you get started. There were times with this map where I'd be like, oh, I want to fill this in with this landform, and then I'd be like, oh, wait a second, there's a town there. Calm down, get your towns in. That needs to happen first. Alright, I know we have a tiny little bit of forest up here. Alright, that looks like forests. Looks like forests. Fantastic. So, gonna get started doing my grasslands and plains next. So, I tend to do a lot of my grasslands and plains in variations of yellow ochre, which especially this synchromatic one, when you thin it with water, breaks into beautiful colors. So it starts out looking very, very brown, but when you make it thinner, it turns into just these beautiful golden ochres. And I really like the Synchromatic Hooker's Green for this as well. I know that I have these other colors to work with, but these are probably my two favorite for doing landforms. And I use them the most when I'm doing plains and when I'm doing grass hills. So the vast majority of what I have left for terrain on this part of the map are going to be variations of flatlands and higher rises, and then we've got the larger mountain ranges that are scattered throughout. So what I want to be doing for sure with this is using a fair amount of water, because I want these colors to really spread in a beautiful way off of the edges of my forests, so that those are not harsh lines. And so see how that's just blooming now that I've added this as a possibility. So we're going to just let that happen. And then what I'll be able to do is I'll be able to come back into these areas and add a contrast with the shoreline. So that's really, really bright right now. But the way that we can tone that down is with a little bit of the ochre. So I come in and I start going just around my edges because that's where the shore is going to be the clearest. There's not going to be any forests there. It's just basic geography. There is a hair on my map. Not ideal. And so I'm just going to follow these edges and kind of sketch that in with my brush a little bit. And because my page is already wet under where I've laid this down, those edges are going to merge together in ways that are nice and subtle. It's not going to be too harsh in terms of the lines. It's going to be really organic in terms of how it looks. And that's just going to create a really nice even edge. I think the effect of it is just kind of lovely. It reminds me a little bit of like the traditional maps that you'd see in Alice's, I think is why I strongly prefer the color setup. And then I can work this ochre back into this area with more water and just smooth that transition as much as I want to. And I think that gives us a really nice dynamic shoreline. You can see where I've transitioned underneath these trees, the areas where I don't have that brighter green underneath. The ochre is showing through much more gold and much more brown. And that's to be expected. That's exactly what we want. So that's no problem at all. Oh, there's some forest up here I missed. Let's maybe handle that right now. So what I'm just doing there is I had a lot of water in that area, so I'm just bleeding it back. That's one of the things that I love about watercolor. I got too much water in that area. Okay, cool. I can fix that. Just take it right back out. So then we're coming along the edge into an area that we know is predominantly lowland grass plain here. And what I'm doing is just pulling out the water that I've been using, and I'm getting this area nice and wet. Which is fading out the green that I had on my brush, making that nice and loose and easy to work with. It's teasing up the edges of the existing mountains. Or sorry, forests, wrong word. Which is letting them blend more organically into what's going on the map. And then I'm going to go back into my yellow ochre and I'm just going to start weaving some of that color into this to create a wash. And what that does is that tones down some of that intense green. Just challenges some of the assumptions about what we think is going on the map. Then I know I want this area to be a little bit darker, just to show some variety. So I'm going to lay that down in here. And treat that opposite. Now I have this dark patch. I'm going to fade that out with more water just brought in on my brush. Blend that through. You kind of just play back and forth until you find the color saturations that you like. And over time, the more you work with a product, the more you know this is how it's going to behave under these conditions, and I'm going to like that, or I'm really not going to like that. I really like playing with the edges along a coastline and like bringing a color up to, but not quite all the way into areas. It kind of just creates some interesting topography in my brain, and that's a lot of fun. So I'm coming back down here. It's a really, really bold green down in this area. Let's get some more water in there. Fade that out a little bit. And this is kind of where like really excellent watercolor paper will start showing its value, because I'm working very wet right now. And it's not really buckling, it's not upset at me really. It's kind of just holding its shape and letting me do what I want to do. And that's the value of knowing what your product is. Cheaper paper will start to buckle a lot more, and that will cause you problems because what you're working with is going to become unpredictable. Buckled paper causes paint to pool unpredictably, so you won't necessarily know where the paint that you're putting down is going to flow to, and you don't want to have to be predicting that on the fly. That is not a fun thing. So the more you can kind of know in advance about what your product is going to do under certain conditions, the better off you're going to be in terms of being able to predict it and then navigate it once it's happening. So I don't recommend ever starting a giant project with completely new materials. I've done it a few times. It's something that like I think we all get tempted to do from time to time, but it's very much worth just like being like, okay, I know what my limits are and I'm going to be responsible about them. Which I can't always say is true for me. Sometimes I just get excited to have new things and then I want to play with them. So there's that super bold green again. And I'm digging that right now. That's working for me. We're going to carry that up here. Give the impression of there being a forest. I'm going to lift some of that out. It's just a little bit too bold. Let's move some more ochre down there, shall we? One of the things that you want to be careful about when you're working like I am, which is wet into a previously dried area, is this blue is also a watercolor. And the wonderful and terrible thing about watercolor is you can always rework it. Pretty much as soon as you add water to it, it's going to loosen up to a greater or lesser extent, which means that whatever's underneath it will become active and you will need to deal with that, contend with it again. So this blue where I'm touching it is getting into the ochre that I'm laying down. And I don't mind because I know what color that's going to give me and it's just going to be beautiful, so that's not a problem. But if you're not expecting that and you aren't sure what's going to happen and you don't know that you're going to like the result, it can be really startling. And it can honestly wreck a thing. Like I've had maps where I've been like, well, that was great until I completely messed it up. And then just there's nothing really to do for it except see if you can pull the color out. And a lot of the time you can. Like watercolor is fairly forgiving that way. See if you can pull the color out. If you can, great. Sometimes you get a better result because you're trying to deal with something that you hadn't predicted, which is a fun way to learn, as long as you're not under too much pressure. But if you don't know what you're doing with it, it can be super stressful. And I don't like to learn on commissions, if that makes any sense. Like I like to try things and push myself, but I don't want to learn a whole new technique simply because I promised somebody something good. I don't give myself permission to make mistakes the same way if I'm trying to do something good while learning a technique at the same time, if that makes any sense. And you have to make mistakes in order to figure out how something works and just be playful with it. If you're not willing to do that, you're never going to get the most out of something. So yeah, we're getting, I think, pretty comfortable up in here. I'm just going to bring a little bit more green up into these trees because it's bled out now and needs a little bit more reinforcing. Put a little bit of shadow at the bottom of these mountains. There's a ridge there. And so one of the things that I love, I do not know if you can see it on camera, is there's a beautiful little hill forming here that's from the paint. There's no ink there at all, but it's just a product of the way the washes are going down. And that is the thing that I love about watercolor. Like you get all of the variation in the water that is just a function of how things are flowing in that moment and whatever other factors are bleeding into it. And I love that. Like there's just something so organic and lovely about the fact that you're not in 100% control of what's going on your page. I've said in other live streams that I really love to be surprised by the process. And I think that that's the most gratifying aspect of dealing with watercolor is it's always surprising me because the fluid dynamics of it, like it's simple physics in some ways, which sounds maybe a little bit less romantic. But it just delights me. It makes my heart happy. And it also creates something that you're never going to get somewhere else. Like, I don't have any experience with programs like GIMP, for example, or I have precious little experience with stuff like Photoshop. But there have been things that I've seen in my mapping groups by programs like Incarnate and stuff. And even though I know that there are different cartographers creating different maps, it all tends to look the same to me because whatever those programs are, they're giving you limited options. And you're never going to run into that with a hand-drawn map. You just won't. It's a function of, was this pen working today? Was this a thing that you thought of? Was your hand shaky? Did you sneeze? One of my favorite cartographers on Instagram, Wandering Cartographer, had a pot of ink upset on one of his maps. And he was gracious enough to share a picture of that oh my god moment with the rest of us, which I don't know if I'd be brave enough to do that. But it was really like commiserating with him because we've all been there. Like that has absolutely happened. So to be able to be like, yeah, man, I hear you. I mean, that's the other half of you're always going to have an original product, but sometimes it's going to be brutal getting there. Who was the artist? He goes by Wandering Cartographer on Instagram. If somebody can look that up and give the name, that would be great. I don't really want to jump here and start typing in the midst of trying to paint. Gary, sorry I missed your question earlier. Do you find there's a conflict in watercolor between control and improvisation? I think there was, but I think it was also more at the beginning compared to where I am now. Like, I still consider myself an amateur watercolorist. This is not my primary medium by any stretch of the imagination. I still consider myself very much in training wheels when it comes to this. But I know that the longer I have done it, the better I have gotten. And because I now know more about what it can do, I'm more willing to try and improvise with it, if that makes any sense. When I wasn't really sure what I was doing with it, I was way more hesitant to just try. But that's where having something like a studio journal comes in, where all of a sudden it's just like, you know what? I need to learn. So here we go. And the learning is the part that, I don't know, like if you don't put your time in and you don't learn your materials, you're not going to know what they can do for you, and you're not going to be able to improvise on the fly with them. I guess in some ways it's a bit like cooking. I love to cook. Anybody who knows me knows that I love to cook, and I'm a fairly good cook. But I've also been cooking for a really long time, and I know, just with the knowledge of someone who's been doing it for a long time, if you add paprika to this is what it's going to do. And that's just a function of knowing paprika and knowing whatever else I'm cooking and carrying on in that direction, right? In art, it's really the same way. If you know what you're starting with and you have a vague idea, or a fairly good idea in some cases, what you think it's going to do, if you have enough information and enough time in, you're probably right. Like, it's that with anything. It's all knowledge, which is why go ahead and make 5 million mistakes with your new supplies. Get out a piece of paper and just be prepared for things to be ugly and get them done. Because the more you know, the better what you want to be will be. And I feel like that's always kind of the goal. I'm a big fan of the whole fail faster scheme of things. I don't know if anybody's ever heard that phrase before. It was really big on my social media a while ago. And I thought it was a great extortion. I mean, failure is going to happen. It's just a matter of knowing it and kind of predicting when so that you can handle and mitigate those circumstances. So again, we're doing the same kind of thing here. We're laying down a lot of water, kind of reactivating those trees that are in the region. And what I'm doing is I'm just making sure I'm paying attention to where I have my hills versus my mountains. Setting up my really wet kind of green areas. And then coming back in with my ochre along my coastline. Paying attention to where I want that soft and where I want that hard. Trying to think of how to do this without getting in your guys' way too much. Usually I spin my paper because it's always better to be pulling your brush towards you than pushing it away. It keeps your brush in far better condition. You have a lot more control over your lines. But spinning paper on my desk currently is difficult because this is a very large piece of paper. My desk is not well laid out for this particular size. Darcy, does any paper and ink brand combination work best for this type of small detail work? The biggest thing is know your media. I'm going to try to expand on that a little bit because I realize that that ultimately is not a very helpful statement. So, the biggest thing for me to know going into this piece is it's going to be a watercolor map. So, first and foremost, I know I am going to need a paper that can hold up to watercolor. I did a live stream a little while ago, kind of going through how I made my decision process for figuring out what I was going to use. Straight up, the answer for me a lot of the time is it needs to be affordable. I need to not feel that it's so precious that I'm terrified of working with it. Expensive supplies really will do that to me a lot of the time. Like, I use good quality stuff, don't get me wrong. But if I paid $60 for a piece of watercolor paper, and that is totally possible to do, I am going to be way less inclined to work with it because I'm going to be way more terrified of messing it up. So for me, it's super important to then realize, okay, well, maybe I'm more comfortable buying a piece of paper that's $15 for this one piece, and then I'll try that and see how it goes. And so once I get to that kind of price point area where I'm starting to feel comfortable, and this is also knowing your threshold for mistakes. If I know that there's a likelihood I might mess up this map, then I need two of those pieces, so I have a backup piece, right? Once I have a price point where I'm comfortable, I start researching brands to see who's kind of got what reviews and what ratings. And then I take that into consideration. I live 2 hours away from my closest art supply store, so the research aspect of what I do is pretty high. And then I go in and I ask, confirm their knowledge. Don't be afraid of your storekeepers, they're incredibly useful. And then I make a purchase decision and I keep a studio journal. So I have a book where I write down every time I buy something and every time I use it. Okay, how did it go? What did I use it in combination with? What did I think of that process? Was there anything that stuck out? Was it kind of eh? You know, like even meh is an important piece of information when you're learning about a material. I didn't love it. I'm crazy about it. Okay, good. Write that down. Have those notes. That will help you later. With doing a watercolor map, I needed an ink that wasn't going to move. So it was super important to find the pens that I needed that were going to be waterproof because I've used other like super narrow pens, got an entire map done, and then put my first wash of watercolor on it. Everything went to mud because I hadn't been paying attention to the fact that my pen was not in fact waterproof. Oh man, that day was a terrible day. So for me, watercolor map. Okay, we need pens that are waterproof. We need paper that is going to be thick enough to hold up to watercolor washes. I know my style. I know that these are things that I need to take into consideration. Price point is a big one. I'm not going to spend money that is unreasonable on products, especially when I'm doing commissions. Because like sure, I could use a $60 piece of paper, but that will also factor into me pricing myself out of my market. And if you're doing art for other people, that's a consideration. You may have clients who are like, I want that, so do it. I'm like, okay, cool. But if not, then you know that can play into it as well. I'm kind of losing my train of thought here. The chat's like blowing up. Cool. Sorry, Darcy, bring me back on topic here in just a second. I know that I had more to say on that subject and I've just lost my train of thought by looking at the screen. Gary, thank you. I like watching other people paint and draw. It makes me happy. So if it's making other people happy, then cool. I dig it. Myrna. No, I thought it was the wandering cartographer, not photographer. I believe he's in Germany or Poland. Let me know if that helps or doesn't help. Okay. Darcy, where are you located? Hi, David. Ah, sorry, Myrna. If you go through my Instagram likes, he's there. You're in Melbourne. One of my favorite people is from Pebble Beach. She's living in Sydney right now, so that is exciting. Okay, guys, I will Google Foo after the chat and come up with this name before I close the chat down. Sorry, I know who he is, but I haven't seen him post in a while either, so I wonder if he's still hanging out. Melbourne, it's a place I want to go. for sure. Okay, back to the point about brands and stuff. So yeah, find for this kind of stuff, find your pens. I'm a huge fan of certain kinds, the legendary microns. I mean, if you're doing super fine work like I do, these things are your best friends. The only pen line that I've found that goes smaller than a micron is Copic. Copic can go down to a 0.003. This is a 0.025. It's like drawing with a needle. It's so fine, there's almost no point to it on certain types of paper. Like this is too rough for a 003 to work on because it just eats that nib. But that can be fun depending on what you need it to do. Find your pens. Make sure that they do what you want them to do, that they're waterproof or that they're Copic proof or that they'll stand up to whatever abuse you're going to put them through. Make sure you know you have a good idea what your paper is going to do. Play with your paper. Rip a bit up into squares, use the actual ink that you're going to use or your watercolor paint or whatever, and see what it does on that particular style of paper. I have completely drawn out entire drawings on like a scrap sheet of paper or a piece of foolscap or newsprint and then gone to put it on to my nice paper and had the drawing completely not work because the pen and paper that I had combinationed in my head to do it with was not compatible and I hadn't thought that through. On my Instagram, there is a picture way back of a Venetian mask, like a Plague Doctor style mask, that's on a very pale blue paper with a black pen. And that was so the wrong combination. That thing should have taken me like 2 hours to draw. It took me like 6 because it was the wrong nib. And I was too stubborn to give up on it. But you know, live and learn. So thanks, David. Appreciate it. I'm trying to get the color taken care of here and we'll just keep going from there. I'm starting to feel more comfortable showing people my process, so I'm really grateful that you guys are here kind of helping me through this. I get a little bit of stage fright with this kind of thing, which is part of the reason why I started doing it, was to help me kind of get over that feeling of like, I don't know if I should do this. I like to talk to people, but I am also kind of weirdly shy about doing stuff in public, if that makes sense. It's that vulnerability of being like, well, what if somebody jumps on me or doesn't approve or whatever, and at a certain point you have to kind of just go with it and be like, yeah, you know what, that's them and this is me and I'm gonna do it. So I'm super glad nobody's being mean though. Sometimes I'm afraid of the internet. What can you do? So coming further south, I'm going to change up my colors a little bit. I'm moving away from the yellow ochre and I'm going into a golden brown for my edges. And so that's got a really different flavor, right? Like it's not as red as what the ochre was. And that's cool. So we're just going to work that in, grab some more water, pull it down. It's got a really beautiful golden undercolor. Really digging that. So the same thing, we'll just use more water, pull it down, push it towards our coastline. I want to make that softer. And then I'm going to tap up my green and pull some of that into here. You've been a college teacher for over 90 classes. You get the stage fright at the start of a new class. Oh man, do I ever hear that, David? I taught for 1 semester as part of my master's degree, and it was the most nerve-wracking thing at the beginning of every class to get up there in front of this lecture hall full of people. And once I got started, I was fine. But it's the same thing kind of like with drawing for people too. Like, I know what I'm doing. Once I get going, I feel a lot more confident. It's that initial hump of like, can I really do this? If I just like talked myself into it, am I somehow delusional? I think the creative process, because it can be so isolating, doesn't do a lot to alleviate those fears in us either, right? Because if I was sitting here not on the internet doing this work, I'd be having those thoughts by myself. And there wouldn't be people to be like, hey, your process is bringing me joy, or, you know, we're just happy you're here, or whatever. And that's part of the reason why I'm trying to create this other style of artistic practice for myself, because I know that I have a tendency to get stuck with that in my head. And I don't want to be. Like, I don't think that that's helpful, and I don't think it's productive. The more thoughts I have like that, the less art I make. And really, that's not the point. Make more art. Make it badly, make more of it, carry on. Same thing as a game. What kind of game? You talking D&D, David? You talking baseball? Talking football? Where are you at? DM, Game Master. Okay, I follow. I haven't done a lot of DMing. I've played a fair amount. My style of DMing tends to be different than what the people around here want to play, which is not a bad thing. It's just different. So, I think it would be a lot of fun to do. I just haven't had that much experience with it. I find the transition into a new character can be really challenging. Because it's like, well, people have known me to play this other person. What if I don't do that time? And sometimes I worry more about just falling into a character that I've played before. All right, so we're back down to the marshes that I was talking about earlier. So let's do that. So I've got a little bit of my yellow ochre and a teeny tiny bit of that brown. And they're really, really well watered. So I'm coming back down into this island. And I'm just dropping it on top of that green. It's really, really thick. There's a lot of water here. And I'm just letting the paper soak it without actually touching it too much. And what that's doing is it's letting the water disturb the pigment where I've played down the green without mashing it together. So that'll glaze what's going on underneath, hopefully without disturbing the actual water line and the bay around it too much either, which is kind of the goal. Because I don't want to be reactivating all of the water down around here. And what I'm hoping that will do is create for us kind of a murky effect. That these waters are kind of sludgy and slow moving. That we're more in a swamp. I don't know if I'm quite getting that color that I want. But it's too wet to really do a whole lot with right now, so we're going to let that dry. We're going to move over here, and then we'll keep going. So I know I've got some hills up here. I've got another small mountain there too. Okay, pay attention to that. Let's pull those in. I'll grab some more water. Darcy, you've been DMing for a year or more for the same group and you still get nervous. You know what? I agree with you. Doing something, wanting to do something very well. Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think, yeah, I'm trying to codify my thoughts on that, but really it's just heartfelt agreement. It's really cool that you've had a gaming group that's been together that long. Mine has been together for a long time now too. I think it's just about 2 years, and that's been a real wonderful thing for me. They're probably the second biggest reason why things are easy for me, kind of where I am. Because it could be a lot more awkward. Oh, no. Calm down. Move over. Yeah, that's better. Sorry, I start talking to my map. It's a thing I do. I don't know if you guys can hear that, but my dog is barking in the yard. That's better. There we go. I try to be there, Gary. I like to be there for people. I legit think that if we spent more time being there for people, the world would be a less grumpy place. I don't mean that to sound trite. I think sometimes that we forget that we have a lot of power to be present for each other, and I don't think we remember sometimes how important being present can make another person feel. And I think if we spent more time doing that, there would be positive consequences to the way that worked, I guess, for lack of a better phrase. So what I'm trying to do over here is just add more color and more definition, but leave my road open. because I have some roads that are in this area. I want to make sure that they look readable, traversable, especially because there's a lot of flat going on in this area, so I want to make sure that that's a little bit more visually interesting because there's not as much going on down here as there is on other areas of the map. A fantastic coming. I'm assuming you mean comic, Myrna? And that's just an auto carrot doing auto carroty things. Yeah, okay. I kind of feel like I'm making this whole, like, there's a chat going on and I can read it thing happen tonight, you guys. This is the first time I've ever tried doing that by myself. Normally Myrna's my web mistress extraordinaire and she just forwards me the questions and I kind of go from there. And everybody else kind of just chats on their own, but I like this. I dig this a lot. This is cool. Yeah, I do remember. This is why I'm so impressed that you're here. I was like, I'm not going to bug you. You're not feeling well. I'll try to do this on my own. Don't ever, ever take for granted friends who are amazing people. Gary, your current group has played 24 sessions so far. You've been accomplishing almost nothing, but it's the best game you've ever played in. You know what? I'm for that. Like, I'm not someone who is driven necessarily by, like, battles and quest progress and stuff like that. For me, what I love about gaming is the psychology of it. So I have no problem being in a game that is quote unquote practically accomplished nothing because you have accomplished something. You've had such an incredible time role playing. And that takes time and investment and it's enviable. Like I know people who really wish they were still playing in our game. Like the game that we're in has a reputation on base. There are people who do not play with us that when my friend Nicole goes to work on Thursday, know that it was game night on Wednesday and her orderly room wants an update. Okay, what happened? Is everyone alive? What, like, you know. And we go to Christmas parties and people are like, hey, is there room in your game yet? Like, we really want to join you. And it's been interesting to be part of that in terms of a phenomenon. And mostly it's because people know that we play in such a way that good things are happening and like characters are getting their due and it makes the game fun, I think. I mean, don't get me wrong, we have a ton of monsters and there's lots of quests and all of the traditional trappings of D&D and Pathfinder and what have you. But it's a good group. I think I also love that we have super, super respectful players, which is fun. Is there a lot of waiting time to dry in watercolor? No, Darcy, there's really not. This is already dry. And this is still a little bit damp, but this is already dry. And you have seen me work on that. We're like, what, an hour in? So it tends to be, I'd say 15 or 20 minutes if you're working on a really wet wash. But the thing about it is you can go back and reactivate it afterwards, right? You can go in anywhere with basically a damp brush and just be like, I'm coming back now. And you can have some success with remanipulating that area. Also, yes, all hail Drag Race. I'm a huge fan. Which season are you on, Myrna? I think that's one of the things I love about it, to be honest, Darcy, about watercolors, is that it's pretty instant gratification. Like, if you want to get something done in a sitting, it's really wonderful for that. You could be like, this is the amount of time I have, and you know you're not going to have to fuss about it being in a secure, dry place or whatever, because it'll be done pretty quickly. It'll be safe enough to leave unattended kind of thing. As opposed to oils, which you need like a secure place for those to live until they've cured, which is kind of a not totally forever deal because oils are a fascinating thing that I have never really gotten good at. I haven't really had too much exposure to them though, so that's probably part of it too. Acrylic is really, really fast, but in some ways it can be almost too fast because of the plasticization of it. You can create textures in it that you don't necessarily want to do. Hey, Emily, how are you? I'm just super excited to see you. I kind of fangirl whenever I see your work, so I'm excited. Hi. Um, yeah, sorry, Myrna. Yeah, no, for sure. I was asking you what season you were on. So yeah, we're good. You said so. That's good. Um, Darcy, do you paint? I've been meaning to ask you as I keep trying to come back to your questions. So these are lakes, just in case anybody's wondering why I haven't touched those yet. They are different creatures and require different colors. Yeah, semi-dried acrylic is really fun. True story. Oh yeah, Myrna, totally. I agree with David. If you haven't watched Skin Wars, it's completely fun. No, for sure, Darcy. Absolutely. Um, my suggestion for that is the only way to deal with fear is through it. The only way to go is through. Um, I have I still make terrible, terrible pieces of watercolor art. Like I said earlier, I consider myself a newbie at this. I haven't been doing it very long. It probably looks like I have been because I have a lot of other painting experience that comes to bear. It's like, honestly, I've only been making maps now for, I don't know, about 6 months. So I don't consider myself like an old hand or anything by any stretch. It's just something that I really wanted to try and I started doing it and I really enjoy it and other people seem to like it. So cool, we're gonna keep doing it until those things aren't true anymore. But the only way to get comfortable and to get familiar is to play with it. I didn't know I could do any of this until I started doing it and started letting myself make mistakes. So I suggest like just start somewhere, put it down, see what happens. My favorite way to do that is honestly like make wet washes and then go throw salt in them because it creates the coolest pattern. But that'll get you kind of mixing things and starting to feel more comfortable with how they go together. And I love that, like just the sense of play. The other thing that I love was there's an author named Julia Cameron. She does a book called The Artist's Way, and it's a workbook for artists who are blocked and feel like they're not reaching their full creative potential. And the first time I read about it, I was like, this sounds really hokey, and I don't know how I feel about this. And so I left it alone for a very long period of time. And one year, I just decided I was going to read it. And it's a workbook, like I said. So there's homework. She gives you like questions that you have to answer, and there's assignments to do. And I'm secretly Hermione Granger, and I love homework. So I started doing it. Like I took it seriously and said, okay, if this is the assignment, then this is the assignment, and I'm going to do it. And I learned so much about myself going through that book. And it just gave me permission to play and to kind of be okay with getting it imperfect. One of the products, or not products, projects she has you do is 3 pages of writing every morning that you don't look at again. You write it down, stream of consciousness, and then you turn the page and you never look at it again. And the not looking at it again was so liberating for me. It was like, this is terrible. That's okay. Flip the page. It never existed. You don't ever have to look at it again. And that gave me so much more permission to do things and learn things. And I still do it that way. I have sketchbooks that once they're done, they're closed. I never look at them again. Sometimes years down the road, I will go and have a look, but a lot of the time, it served its purpose. Those pages are filled. I learned what I learned from them. That knowledge is now within my head, and I can just go. And I think you are an artist. Don't say you're not an artist of any sort. You are an artist. You're a tentative artist right now. You're someone who has the desire to create, and you're surrounding yourself with the tools and the people. You just need to give yourself the time. And that is totally cool. We all start somewhere, right? I was that kid in elementary carrying a sketchbook everywhere because I didn't know how to talk to people. So, yeah, Myrna, preach. Tell her the difference between capital A art and lower A art, and then tell her about Danny Gregory because yes, Danny Gregory is one of my heroes, you guys. He is amazing. That is a boatload of pigment right there. Let's blur that out a little. More water. I think everybody's an artist. David, it's so true. It's so true. I mean, I I am a sometime weightlifter. I love to lift heavy things, but when I don't practice, I'm not good at it. Right? It's the nature of everything. Oh, more blue pigment picking up along that line. Hi, dude. How you doing? Maybe we'll pretend there's a little river over there or something. Oh, also, if people have not watched Bob Ross, please watch Bob Ross. Bob Ross is like the hero of people. He's also like the single best solution for stress that I have ever come across. I'm having a terrible day. 2 episodes of Bob Ross. All is right in the world again. Marna, I hear you. I think, is it Chuck Close that said, inspiration will come, but it has to find you working? No, that was Pablo Picasso. Chuck Close said, inspiration is for amateurs, the rest of us show up and work. And those are the 2 quotes that really get me going because they're true in my experience. I often will get inspired, but only after I've started doing stuff that I'm working on. It's like, oh wait, what if I tried this? What if I tried that? And also, if you sit down with the intention of making something happen, doesn't necessarily have to be it, but making something happen, something will happen. Then it just becomes about leaving yourself the space to let that be whatever it is and not want it to be something else. Some days you're just going to make crap. I mean, I have those days all the time. That's acceptable. No one's good every day. No one is good every day. Oh man. Myrna, can you find that Sarah Scribbles comic about the whole like, it's a God-given thing, no, it's hard work, no, it's talent, no, it's hard work? Because that cartoon is like the life of the creative person. I get really, really gnarly with people who are like, oh my God, you're so gifted. Well, sure, but I've also put thousands of hours into this. Like, I don't know that it's gift so much as just sheer bloody tenacity. I wasn't good at this. I certainly didn't start at a point where anybody was like, oh my God, you're a virtuoso. No, I was just stubborn. I had reasons to keep doing it, so I did it. David, yeah, true story. Those who can't make laws about teaching. Uh-huh. Yeah, Gary, it's a thing. I mean, I have a bit of a linguistic anthropology background, so precision in language is a bit of a passion point for me. I get really annoyed when people call things crazy when they are not in fact crazy. We have other language, use it. It completely marginalizes people who are struggling with mental health issues to say that that video was crazy. No, it wasn't. You have other adjectives. Carry on. Sorry, that's a soapbox I will step back from right now. But yeah, when you call it what it is, then we're not labeling it poorly and we're not disrespecting anybody. Because if you've worked for it, you've worked for it. Let's call it what it is because it's true. I think the idea of talent also again, kind of soapboxing. It's part of what feeds into this idea that art is easy and art is somehow free for everyone. The whole like, oh, you should just draw me this thing for exposure. Well, okay, great. No. I have decades of experience doing this, and exposure does not pay my bills. Like, you want this thing that is skilled labor, you should be prepared to pay for it, just like you want a carpenter to come to your house and fix your thing. But if it's talent, it's somehow not skilled, which gets valued differently. And I'm just suspicious of that, you guys. Like, that's not cool. I think it plays into a lot of stuff in terms of economics and in terms of keeping different groups of people in different social situations. And I don't know. I'm suspicious of anything that doesn't let us all agree that our labor is valued. And even if that's something as innocuous as saying you have talent instead of skill, I don't know. It's a thing. Totally ableist language, right? For sure. I'm a big social theory person, guys. I'm a complete nerd. This is this is a thing you will learn about me as we hang out. I'm very focused on making sure we're all treating each other well and that the world is beautiful and that we're respecting each other. And I'm aware that the world is often not beautiful, but I don't think that absolves me from attempting to make it better. So if even something as simple as watching my words, that's a thing. For sure. Yeah. David, I get that. But, like, the thing about irrational anger is we have a hard time with anger, I think, in our society. I think we don't know how to process it in social ways that make it valid and powerful without it being completely overwhelming and irresponsible and stuff. There's more about that thought that I can't have right now. Oh, but Darcy, that's the thing. There's also this huge issue with like you already had the supplies to do that. It's just your time, right? Dumplings are labor intensive. There aren't too many people I know who actually make dumplings at home. Even my friends who are Asian. They're just like, "No, man, I'm going to go find somebody who has time to do this and I'm going to buy them because my time is better spent doing other things." It's like, no, respect it. Just everybody is worth what they do. And as soon as we disassociate people's value from them as people and suddenly just make it that it's only what they can do, like there's wrongness there. Yeah, Myrna, totally. I might have just taken it sideways too, David. It's sometimes interesting to have a thought and then try to paint and realize my brain is going in 12 different directions. I really hope that I'm making any kind of sense to you at all, because I can't promise right now. This is fun, though. I'm having a really good time. You are braver than I am, Darcy. Dumplings are a thing I have never once tried to make. I'd like to. I think they're delicious. They are a food I like to eat. I just have never braved them. But honestly, folding 150 dumplings is a lot like putting some watercolor on the paper, my girl. The more I look at that map, the more it looks like an MRI meets a pelvis, and I'm not mad about it. I gotta look at it through my phone now, just a second. I don't think you're wrong, Holmes. Huh. Things I didn't know until right now. I don't think I'm mad about it either. Nail on the head there, David. Value is value. But then you get into that whole linguistic determinism thing of what is value? What does it mean? How do we decide that and how do we reinforce it, right? Social construction of value is absolutely fascinating. Yeah, washing rice. Also that making of the egg omelet thing, right? The omelet is super challenging. Hey, baby.
Pizza's here.
Okay, cool. I'm going to be a bit because we're having a rockin' good time.
Oh,
Is that okay?
I will eat all the pizza myself.
You can do that. I would prefer you save me one piece. I love you.
Love you.
Bye.
Oh, there's also a Coke Zero for you. Baby, you want that?
I would love that.
Okay.
Thank you. Sorry, guys. Humanity breaking in. What do you mean you're powerless, Darcy? Expand. I do not understand. Give me more information. Thank you, light of my heart.
Love you.
Love you too. Yeah, we are ridiculously cute. Powerless in the face of fears regarding learning things. I get that. The only way to do it is to just do it. Make a line. Tomorrow, make 2. When I started lifting weights, I had so much anxiety about being in that weight room. I am a big human. I've never been considered pretty. I am considered ungainly no matter where I go. It's awkward for me to be in spaces where there are fit people. I don't like it. I was really anxious about being there. Dave was like, you know what? Shut up. You get to be in there just as much as everybody else. Sure, you're a fat person. Your money spends just as well as a skinny person's does. We're going to go. You want to do this? I want to do it with you. Carry on. And we would go in, and I'd literally one day be able to pick up one thing and put it down. That was a win. Then I'd go home. And the next day we'd go in, and I'd pick it up and put it down twice. And it sounds so silly, but like, I once squatted 300 pounds. Which was 50 pounds more than my body weight. I didn't think I was capable of doing that. And at the beginning, I wasn't. I don't even think I squatted 50 pounds the first time I did it. I was pretty sure I was just squatting the bar. But it took me a year. After that year, man, I had proficiency. It was pretty great. It was exactly proficiency skills. You're a gamer. Dude, just build your proficiency. You got this. I believe in you. Well, I'm not saying I'm not gorgeous. I'm just saying I'm a big human being that isn't considered stereotypically beautiful. I mean, for a given standard of beauty, which is kind of broken anyway. I'm just one of those people that you don't pick me out for a wet t-shirt contest, that's for sure. Which is perfectly fine with me, by the way. I miss weightlifting. Like, it was something that is so outside of my wheelhouse, you guys. Like, I'm not an athlete. I don't know. It was so far outside of my self-conception of all of the things that I never ever thought I was that I was so uncomfortable doing it. And it was such a revelation when I got into it. It was just like, this is one of the most empowering things I have ever done. And I wouldn't have done it without Dave. He was completely like, there's no reason you can't. This is dumb. It's all in your head. Let's go. And I was like, oh, that's blunt. And perhaps in some circles kind of rude. Which, if you know Dave, is kind of 50% of what he says. It's always good for you. It's just usually very, very blunt. And we went, and we did, and I have no regrets. It was absolutely one of the best things. Just reading the comments here. Oh, yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, community is a really big deal. And I find that the older I get, the more important it is, and the harder it can be to find it. Um, it's super important for me to try and open up those avenues when other people are looking for it. It's super important to keep those avenues open for me, which is part of the reason I'm hanging out doing this with all of you, because I want to meet more people who want to do these things. And I mean, Darcy, you're in Australia. Like, we're literally across a planet and we're hanging out doing this thing. You want to text me, show me what you're working on, send me a message on Facebook. Do it. Congratulations, you're now in the group. Actually, that's a true story. We have a private little art group on Facebook where we just hang out and post things that are cool, share what we're working on, whatever. If you want in, send me a message. I'll hook you up. Because it's about keeping us going with the things that inspire us, that we're kind of afraid to do, that we want to do. Like, there's no reason not to. If you need a community, we can make a community. That is a thing we are capable of doing. Oh, Blue, why you gotta be like that? Don't do me that way. No. Okay, sweet. David, if you want in too, send me a message. Yeah, if either of you are ever in Edmonton, come hang out in person. This is a thing we do for real. So this, I want to tell the story of the art jam because they're my favorite thing ever. So what I'm trying to duplicate by doing this YouTube business is the experiences that we would have when I was still living in Edmonton before I left to go for my MA in Regina, where we would go to Myrna's and only the people who had a project that they were currently working on were allowed to come. Didn't matter what you were working on. You just had to have a project. And if you had a project, we came and we just worked together. We'd pile into her living room and we would work for a couple of hours. And so one of my favorite afternoons, Eric was trying to teach Dale how to DJ. Cam was trying to learn how to play his guitar. And I was drawing. I think Myrna was working on... What were you working on, babe? Scrapbooking or something? And, like, somebody was knitting. Like, there was a whole mob of us, and I don't think any of us were doing the same thing. But for a couple of hours, we were just there, hanging out, supporting each other, making sure that we were each getting the work in that we wanted to get in. And that is like one of my favorite things ever. And that's what we're trying to do with the Art Jam group on Facebook. Is just like, hey, I'm working. Is anybody else working right now? This is a thing I'm interested in. Has anybody else seen anything on it? This is just cool. Here, have a pretty thing to look at. And that's kind of what I'm trying to do, like I said, with this YouTube experiment, is kind of recreate that Art Jam experience from a teeny tiny army base in the middle of Alberta. Because getting to a space where it's bigger is nuts. Won't happen for a while. Your sketchbook project. What's this about, a playground? Why are we working in a playground? I mean, not that I'm not, like, totally into this idea, but I'm confused. Oh, Cameron, are you talking about the actual... Yes, though, legit. Bring kids, we can go art jam in a playground. Kids love to do this stuff. Sadly, I need to unplug for the night. Oh, well, have a great night, David. I hope you sleep super well. Enjoy the rest of your evening. You're totally welcome. I'm glad that you found it encouraging. Thank you for sharing space with me. I'm honored to have you here because, you know, it's just nice to have a hangout with people. I was gonna ask, Myrna, you said my sketchbook project. Are you talking about something specific, or are you talking about the Brooklyn sketchbook project? Because if people don't know about that, they should totally know about that because it's amazing. What? I lost my train of thought with this painting. Where am I, you guys? Coastline. I'm up on a coastline. That's where I am. Gary, don't waste jam. Wasting jam is not quite a cardinal sin. It might be like a tertiary sin or a quaternary sin. The Brooklyn one. Yeah, no, for sure. So, Darcy, actually, this might be right up your alley. If you've never heard of it, there is a sketchbook project called The Sketchbook Project that every year they send out you pay for the thing. I forget how much it is. It's like 25 bucks American or something. So it might be more if you're in Australia because poor Australia gets completely gymmed for everything in terms of mailing things. But they send out a notebook. And I think you can set it up that you get a random prompt, or there's a set of 6 prompts that you can pick one from. And your job is to fill that notebook on that theme. And then you send it back. And they have this archive in an old warehouse that's just full of thousands of these sketchbooks that have been submitted over the course of the years. And Myrna, wasn't that the first sketchbook you ever filled? Because you had such anxiety about filling a book at the beginning. I know it was one of my, like, I've kept sketchbooks my entire lives, but that was one of my favorite sketchbooks, was the first time I ever did the sketchbook project. Because I'd never had something that was, like, focused like that. It was really, really cool. But Eric liked it so much I never sent it in. Really? That's kind of fabulous. I wish Dave would like something art-wise that I did so much to be like, no, I really want to keep that. Not that he's not supportive. Don't take that comment that way. He's absolutely supportive. But again, if you knew my Dave, you'd know, that looks good, is about the peak praise you're ever going to get in your life. So just don't hold out for more. He means it. It's just he's not effusive in his praise. Which is fine. I don't need his praise. Just his love. Oh, man. Guys, I'm still in love with this brush. This is like a really, really shiny, shiny brush. You should do another one soon. Yeah, this is a real hair. This is Sable. This is like the Winsor and Newton Series 7. I went into Delta to buy paint and I was like, okay, I need 2 new brushes. And he's like, okay, what are you looking for? And I was like, eh. I go through brushes really, really quickly. And he's like, what are you using? And I said, oh, I'm using synthetics. He's like, well, that's your problem. You're using really, really terrible brushes. And I was like, well, that doesn't surprise me because I've always just made do with what I've had because I haven't had a ton of money for supplies. And he's like, can I talk you into some better brushes? And I was like, yeah, I mean, I actually have a little bit of money right now, so sure, tell me, give me your sales pitch. And these are apparently like the top of the line, which sounds so pretentious, and freaks me out a little bit. But he said if I take care of them, like he just inherited some brushes from somebody who passed away at 94 that the guy had been using for 30 years, and they're still in immaculate condition. Sable. Yeah, these are the tail hairs of some kind of weaselly stoaty thing. Beyond that, I would have to Google it. So, sorry. I don't have an answer for you. Beyond that. Okay, so that is quite a bit of the land. It's only pretentious if I don't use them. You know what? I like that. I might have to write that down for future reference because I feel like there's some truth there. Let's put a little bit more shade into these there hills. With a little water squishy. Do you mean a water brush, Darcy? And you're right, Gary. It would totally make a great band name. Would it open for fraudulent bacon, though? Because that's always, always my litmus test for band names. I think I have my water brush nearby. I can put it on the screen. Yeah. Man, I love those! Where are mine? I don't know. I have a travel portable watercolor kit that I travel with. That's a set of pans and 2 water brushes, and they are amazing for when I'm traveling. I absolutely love them. No, I hear you. Sometimes buying expensive stuff is terrifying. But at the same time, like, I learned on cheap stuff because that was what I had. And when you start out on lower quality materials, when you get to higher quality stuff, you notice a difference because you've gotten used to working with less. And then when you get the good, you're like, oh, this is the good, and I can respect and appreciate the good. There are, I think, people who have always had the good and don't understand how good they've had it, at the risk of sounding really, really trite. But yeah, it's a thing for sure. Too expensive is paralyzing in my world. I can absolutely lose the thread of whatever I'm doing if something is got a dollar value on it that's intimidating for me. Okay, I think we're just about getting to the point where I am going to want to start painting these mountains. So, let's think about that. Oh, totally. Using that metaphor? Absolutely. Absolutely. It's like, yeah, it's such a difference. I have a hard time even articulating it. I just realized there's still some liquid frisket on my paper. How did I not see you until now? I've been working on this map for like 35 hours. I should have noticed this by now. Come here, little grabber. Let's have that conversation, shall we? Huh. That's irritating. We will have to fix it. Alright, how are we gonna fix it? A little bit of water to start, I guess. And then... There we go. That looks like it almost belongs there now. Winning! Let's paint some lakes. I feel like doing some blue. Now, for consideration, I can do it in the blue that I did the rest of the water in, which is this Ecoline. Or I can do it in a very, very strong tealy blue, which I have, or in a quieter kind of gray blue that I have. I'm feeling kind of like I want to do something that's not the same as the ocean, just because a little bit of variation might be nice. I'm thinking that kind of gray blue. Slate blue, where are you? So I have my colors swatched on a different piece of paper. I don't know if that's immediately clear to people. I'll throw it under the camera here for a second. So I spent some time the other morning just swatching these up so that I have them for my own reference. So that's what I mean when I say it. Can I mix a drop of something else into the ocean? Yeah, I can, and I think that I will, because I think that'll make things a little bit more natural. So, just so happens that I have a bottle of the ocean with a dropper in it too. Sorry, I'm rooting around under my desk. Same color, different bottle. And we will do that because more precision is never a bad thing. And I think the slate blue, is that what I thought about? Oh, come on. Not just air bubbles, actual liquid. So let's just swatch this on the side here and see what we got. So that's just the straight up slate. Well, you guys can't see that. Just a second. There we go. So that's the slate. And this is the regular. You know what? That slate might be okay on its own. Let's do a little bit of a mix here. Okay. Tiny drop of you into you. Gives us what? That really overpowers, hey? Like, that's strong. Oh, there we go. That's better. I think, looking through the camera. That's still pretty dark. Now, is that just a function of how much is there? Yeah. Okay. Sorry, like I said, I talk to myself a lot while I'm painting. It is a part of what I do. See, I really just don't feel like that's all that different. I'm not crazy about how dark it is. Come here, there, darling. I don't know how I feel about that. Put some water in here first. I'm not crazy about that either. Yeah, the post dab is okay, hey? I don't mind that either. Part of it's because that, the Ecoline has that purple undertone, Myrna. And that can get really intense depending on what's going on. I don't know how it's translating on camera, but like it's really purple in front of me. Like fascinatingly so. This bottom one is like super punchy, teal kind of green. Wow, dilemmas, dilemmas. You think they work, Gary? They're okay? How are we feeling about this one? This is the one that's kind of bugging me. I feel like you just need to be more blue somehow. Oh, that's a little better. Oh, there's another one over here. Okay, let's do that while I'm still thinking about it. Need a bit more water on my brush. And see, that one looks really, really different to me. Pourquoi? I have a feeling it's just not enough of this one in there. Okay, we'll let that clean up. Just dry for a minute. Let's see how it's going. Yeah, I think the drying down helps a lot. I agree with you, Darcy. I'm gonna open my Coke. Apologies for the sound. They're all kind of oddly purple, love. I wanted the difference between the likes and the C's too, Darcy. I think let's let them dry down and come back to them because they are reading as fairly purple to me. And I'll see how I feel about that. And we'll go from there. I just realized I totally forgot to paint the land for East Rock. So let's go paint the land for East Rock, shall we? Hello, East Rock. Pardon me. East Rock is supposed to have a bunch of different kinds of vegetation. So, ASMR. What are you talking about, Myrna? I do not know this acronym. Autosensory meridian response. Oh, I've never heard of this at all. Interesting. I'm open to more explanation if you have more explanation available. A YouTube trend? You just like make videos of these things for people to watch, or like how do you trend that? Oh god, let's not monetize anything, okay? That's terrifying. This is dark. I do not like how dark this is. Let's ease that up a little, shall we? Things I did not know until right now. I am educated. Thank you, friends. There we go. That's a little more pleasant. Alright, now for real, I think I'm actually ready to start doing these patterns. Okay, now that you frame it as fireplace crackles, that makes a ton of sense to me. It's like listening to videos of rainfall and stuff, which I totally do. I absolutely love the sound of thunderstorms. So... Oh, I can see how that might be confusing. Okay. I follow. I follow. Alright, I'm thinking I want to try some of this slate blue for in the mountains, maybe? Just a little bit. See what we think of that. If not the slate, then maybe the juniper that I have. Which hill over here I forgot about. Just gonna carry that up a little bit. Alright, let's see. I kind of like that. You sound like Freud, Myrna. How are we feeling about that? How does that look in the camera? I think it looks too much like the ocean. What did I do last time? I think I did like actual purple. Let's try this juniper. See what we think of that. Oh, that's really teal. I don't think I'm gonna like that. I think I might just need to go get my lamp black, you guys. Did I get it dark in here? No, I really didn't. Okay, watercolor box, where are you? Yeah, Darcy, it is. It's actually the bottom of a tin of Mario mints that I got a long time ago. And it works well for me. Because otherwise I'd be mixing on this, which, as you can see, I've abused pretty heavily. So this is my travel setup that I work with as I'm wandering around. So, oh yeah, we forgot to do down by Knight's Volcano too. I've really been slacking. Alright, water, lamp black, shall we? Yeah, that's just a lot more navy-ish. I kind of like that. Let us see, shall we? I don't know that that looks any different than what I was doing before. Oh, yeah, maybe a bit now. Okay. So one of the things, like I was saying before, with doing the forest is I want to be really careful that I'm not wiping out my ink work. I'm a little bit vain about my mountains, I've got to be honest. I've just recently come into this way of doing them, and I really, really like it. It's very stained glass inspired. I dig it a lot. And the impact of it, I think, goes away pretty quickly when you can't make out the line work on the lee side of the slopes. So, like, I want to be giving depth with the color, but I don't want to be wiping out the line work that's underneath it. The tulip color. Which one, Darcy? That one? Mario needs all the money. And I am happy to give Mario my money. That is a thing. I can hear one of the dogs upstairs wandering around. That one, yeah. I don't have the list of what they are anymore, I'm sorry. It's some kind of fuchsia. It's very pretty. I like it quite a bit. Don't go into that palette. You're in this palette, you goof. More water. Here we go. Oh, too much green. All the coins. He does it all for the money. All for the money. Yeah, it's starting to look good, hey? Although I have to say, now that it's dried, I kind of dig that juniper tealy thing that was going on. What's the plan for the forest title bits? I'm probably going to end up shading them in with one of the medium greens. Pardon me. Just because I'm really not liking how it looks with the stark white. I need to run that by the commissioner, though. Like, we haven't had a conversation expressly about that. It's the kind of thing that's easy enough to go back and fill in after, so I'm not expressly concerned about it right at this moment. But I was thinking about it, and I'm just not loving how it looks, so hoping we can make it a bit more harmonious than that. But not up to me ultimately. So we will have to get our marching orders. Thank you, Gary. Thanks, Darcy. I really like them, I have to say. I love doing mountains and I love doing forests. So it's a pretty lovely thing for me to be able to be like, this is a thing I'm doing because I think they're awesome. On the Thursday chat, we were talking about places that we like to travel. And I was talking about Jasper, which is one of my favorite places in the entire world. Jasper, Alberta, Canada. I'm really fortunate that I grew up quite close to there and have a lot of memories of being in the parks. And it has definitely influenced my drawing and my writing and my map making because I default to mountains. There's a witch living here? Or which island, Darcy? This one? Or one of the ones up here? Oh man, Darcy, you should totally come. It's absolutely fantastic. My friend Kelly, who's the one from Brisbane, was here as an exchange student in our grade 12 year. And it was tough for her in terms of the weather because she came to Canada in January. which is your guys's summer, if I'm not mistaken. And she got to here, which was our winter. So I think she said something like an 80-degree spread that day between when she got on the plane and when she got off the plane. And I'm surprised she just didn't turn around and leave again right away because that just sounds brutal. But she loved it here. She said it was beautiful. And she said that we were kind, which was always the wonderful compliment that you want to hear. So, yeah. It's one of the reasons why I'd love to go to Australia. She's gotten married and has had a child recently, and it'd be very cool to see her again. I haven't seen her physically in person in, man, more than 10 years, which is scary when you think about the march of time. My God. All the pictures I've ever seen of everywhere in Australia is also just like, yes, please take me there. It's 23 Celsius here today, just for reference. That's like the perfect temperature for me. That's like a pretty good average day for our summer, and that makes me really happy. If it gets up over 30°C, then I start getting pretty uncomfortable and I don't want to go anywhere. But I'm like really happy in the middle. 29, yeah, 29 is starting to hit my upper limit for like, I think I just want to sit in the shade with a cold drink and a novel. Thanks. I went to San Diego for an academic conference a number of years ago, and it was the end of November. And people knew I was Canadian without me realizing it. Just because I was the only one walking around in a t-shirt that had no jacket on. And around me, everybody was in scarves and toques and hats and everything. And I was so confused because like for me, that's summer weather. Like it was perfect. It was like 28 degrees outside. I was so happy walking around the San Diego Zoo. And everybody else is like, you're clearly from Canada. And I was like, is it that obvious? Apparently it was. Light jacket weather. Yeah, that's fair. It's above 0 in Saskatchewan, hey? Yeah. Sorry. It was like +7 or something yesterday here. And I was sad because all my snow was melting. A word for beanies. Beanies is hats, is it not? Because we called Kelly Beanie. Kelly is my friend from Australia who is, she's very, very petite. Tiny, tiny person. And we would lose her in crowds all the time. So we gave her a violently orange snowmobiling toque, which is a knitted cap. I don't know if Australians call anything toques. And she called it a beanie. And so whenever we would go into crowds, like at West Edmonton Mall or whatever, we would make her put the toque on so that we could follow her because it was just such a bright color. She's like, she called it her beanie. And so we would be like, where's our beanie? Where's our beanie? Meaning her. And that was a fun little bit of nothing. Yeah, all our snow is ice too, Myrna. It's gross. I was really looking forward to like the pretty snow that we got dumped on. And it's all like shades of icy gnarliness now. Well, we're gonna have to paint over something because I totally just painted over the wording here. Back up, back up, back up. Erase, erase, erase. Well, I'm not quite into erasing, but better than not. 5'1", yeah, I hear you. Well, I mean, I hear you in terms of I've been that person looking for you. I'm 5'10", so it's hard to lose me anywhere. You gonna go snowboarding in the city, Myrna? I didn't know you guys were going to the mountains this weekend. I am officially jealous. Congratulations. Also, take pictures, text them to me, please. I love that this little city down here in this corner is called Wyverns Bay. I think it's such a great name. Snow Valley this weekend, Jasper, from the 27th to the 30th. Oh my god. I want to go with you. Mountains is the perfect solution to arrive at when you're drunk. There is never going to be a harm or a fail for that. Yellow ochre, where are you? Yeah, Darcy, it really can. Sunburn while you're snowboarding or skiing is pretty common. Because the glare off the snow and just it can be very, very warm for sure. I mean, I guess I could have not bought paint and we could have like paid to go to the mountains overnight or something, but but paint. Because you always know where my priorities are. Where were you that you saw snow, Darcy? Mount Bulla or Beulah? Australia's geography just blows my mind. You guys have so much going on there. Buller. Okay, now I gotta ask you if it's Buller or Bueller because of Francis Bueller's Day Off. But, you know, if you don't get the joke, that's acceptable. I didn't get the joke until recently. I only really get the joke because my husband made me. He was like, "How can you not have seen this movie?" And I was like, "I don't know what you're on about." Fair enough. Yeah, you guys get the desert, plus you get the mountains, plus you get all the rainforest, plus you get an unforgivable amount of spiders. But you also get the Great Barrier Reef, so like really I can kind of like see why you might have to have spiders to karmically pay that one off. Sorry, kidding. I don't actually mean that. Nobody deserves spiders. Alright, so this is in fact a volcano down here. I gotta figure out how I want to like differentiate that from the rest of my thing. Ice cream brands. Hey man, we should name everything after ice cream. I'm all for that. True story. Neapolitan ice cream, when I was a kid, I called it Napoleon ice cream because my brain just went, this is sort of the arrangement of those letters, and that's all. And for years and years and years, I couldn't get it right. It was embarrassing. Probably would be less embarrassing if I'd stopped telling that story, but you know. I'm in control of my own embarrassment. It's fine. Did you, Myrna? Yay, I'm not alone. Twinsies. Alright, let's soften this up a little bit. Maroon is Ramon. Maroon? That, actually, yes, I have. Because that's also a French thing. And I grew up speaking some French as a kid. Um, so yeah, I came by that one through botched bilingualism. My favorite that I constantly made a mistake on is the word khaki. I pronounced as kahiki for a very, very long time because I only ever read it. I'd never heard it said, and then when I heard it said, I was like, "Oh, that's an ugly sounding word," which was kind of embarrassing. I did the same thing with adage. I used to say adage because I'd only ever read it. I'd never heard it said. Again, when I got corrected for that, that was embarrassing. Police was policy for years because if you sound it out as a kid who reads, then it's policy. Yeah, no, I'm really good at pronouncing things wrong. It's a talent. He had a Serbian treat whose name translates to tiny female Napoleon, so it made sense that it would be Napoleon ice cream. That totally, that's amazing. I love stories like that. So that's a river. I need a little line of blue in there. Well, let's put the blue in. I'm still not sure how I'm feeling about these purpley lakes, though. Like, it's really bothering me. I will still think on that. Softening, softening. Yeah, you know what? Let's just make this decision right now. Decision. I'm making it. Can't take it back. Too bad. Please forgive me, Dexter. I made the call. Yeah, definitely no shame in learning by mistakes reading. See? You should apply that to watercolor, Darcy. Apply that to watercolor. There ain't no shame in that game either. Golden Gay Time. Oh man, that sounds like a thing you'd find at Pride. That sounds wonderful. Sigil instead of sigil? Because it's sigil where I'm from. Am I saying, like, I'm pretty sure I'm saying that right if I'm in Canada. What is it where everyone else is? Well, maybe that's right where he's at. I don't know. Linguistic imperialism is still imperialism. Like, let's be clear on this here. I could have it wrong. It might be different from place to place. Okay, go be fun, please. Thank you for coming and supervising and making sure I didn't mess it up. I love you. Give Max a hug for me. I'm probably going to go here pretty quick too because my pizza is getting cold and I'm just about where I'm at with this map without needing to get further instruction from the man with the plan. So, I guess that's true. He is from Florida, isn't he? I forget about that sometimes. Maybe there's a pocket of different linguistic variations in Florida. To be fair, there probably is. I mean, humans have a tendency to settle in bunches that speak like them. It's kind of the nature of what we do. What do you think, guys? 5 more minutes and then we'll call it for tonight. Found a mountain I forgot to paint. Do, do, do. Let's try and pull some of this out of here again. Let's see what we think about that. Yeah. Okay, so tell me the difference between a potato cake and a potato scallop over there. Because this is now a food thing and I'm interested because I dig the cooking knowledge. So, like, potato chips? Or are they different than a potato chip? Yeah, that's that eco line underneath. That's so purple. I'm not going to be able to pick that out. Soft inside, battered like a piece of fish. That sounds delicious. Oh, we don't have that. And now I want it. This is a problem. They sound super... Potatoes are one of my kryptonites. Oh man, I love them. They're so good. Oh, and that is just so dark. Do, 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 do. You are too dark to be allowed. Yep. We're gonna leave that alone until I figure out how to solve this problem, because this is a problem. Oh, Ecoline, you have foiled me. That is gonna be a gouache situation, I do declare. Okay, this means I'm putting it down, because I'm at my wit's end and I don't want to wreck it if I'm frustrated. But that's exactly what we were talking about just a second ago. Like, I learned a lot of my words from reading. There was no local community around me using these words. So, I don't think it's fair to come and arrest me just because my usage is atypical compared to what the bog standard would be. Actually, research the phrase bog standard. I didn't know anything about that until the other day. It's fascinating. All right, my darlings. I am going to go eat myself some pizza. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. This was fun. I enjoyed it. Darcy, enjoy the rest of your day/night. I don't know where you're at in terms of time right now. Gary, thank you for hanging out with me. I think the other ghost person that is watching my live stream is in fact me on my computer. So we'll go with that. If there's anyone else I'm missing, I'm sorry. Thank you for hanging out. 3 p.m. Dude, it's 9 p.m. here. So you're 6 hours ahead of me. That's really not bad for being all the way across the world. All right, have a good one. Gary, I don't know what color the lobster's going to be. I have a note in with the commissioner to find out. I also don't know what color our little thri-creen buddy at the top of the map. I don't know what color he's going to be either. Hopefully I will know tomorrow. All right, my darlings. We are going to log off for tonight. I will try to find whatever links I promised to find and post them in the comments below the video. And if I forget, message me on Facebook through the Monocled Octopus page or whatever, and I will get you into our chat. Okay, catch you later. Bye.